Life as female ministers is complex, but add to that the ethnic minority, it gets even more complicated. Hey guys, do you know any female ministers out there that are sisters of color? Well, go ahead and tag their names because we don't want them to miss this particular episode. I'll be right back. Hey, welcome to Learn Together. I am so excited to continue to collect more friends with you as we journey on this ministry calling. Hey, today we have pretty impactful conversation that we can have with some of the new friends. One of them, actually, if you are a pastor, but you're not a lead pastor, but on staff, this is a very important message that you want to get engaged. Also, if you are a minister of color like myself, then this will be an amazing episode as well. But before we continue, I would love to invite my co-host, Dr. Shannon Polk. She is no stranger to our AG Fellowship. She's a scholar and a minister. She's a lawyer. She's everything. So, Shannon, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Saehee. It's good to be with you. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, I'm so excited to talk about all the things that you wanted to discuss today that matters to a lot of us. I mean, you have several topics you want to talk about. I'm super excited, but you also have some guests you want to invite to just continue this conversation. So tell me about this friend that you are going to bring on in a second.
Yeah, so I want to introduce everyone to Tanisha Finley. She is pastoring with her husband at Fairhaven Assembly of God Church, which is located in Michigan. She was raised in the Assemblies of God and attended one of our AG schools. And so I'm really excited to hear her talk about her journey, both as being a pastor's wife as well as being a staff pastor, because we know those are two unique roles. Also being a person of color, particularly of African-American descent, and what that has meant for her journey as a woman in ministry within the Assemblies of God.
Oh, there's so much that we can glean from and learn. So I'm super excited. Where are you tuning in from? Are you in your office today?
I am at home, like so many women right now, whether they're in ministry or not. You know, a lot of us are still dealing with the pandemic schooling, right? Yeah. So my daughter is here. She's working on her school day. So I'm at home, parenting and doing all those things.
Yeah, you're a super mom and super minister, super woman. Yeah, hey, if she happens to pop in, let her say hi. We will love to see her beautiful face, no problem. But before we move on, let's go ahead and invite your friend, Pastor Tanisha. Welcome.
Oh, Pastor wow, Tanisha. So great to be here with you guys and these wonderful women. Wow, I am just so honored. It's just a great opportunity just to kind of just engage and just to kind of share stories and just to encourage other young women by these conversations. So I am currently in my husband's office. It's a little bit more upgraded than mine. And so we have been co-pastoring probably for the last, we're going on 2.5 years as co-pastors. And so he just stepped in as a lead pastor. And I filled in his previous position as a youth and young adults pastor. And then we just recently created a new position within the ministry of community engagement pastor. And so that's something that I'm currently leading up among some other roles and responsibilities that kind of fall into play naturally. So, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Well, it sounds like your hands are really, really full. Besides, before our recording, we talked about you also raising an army of 6 children. That is amazing.
It's definitely a team. I don't know about a sports team. Some of us have athletic abilities and some of us do not. So we're definitely a team of inspiring talents and gifts and personality, which come from me and my husband. So you can only imagine, if you know me and my husband, what goes on, what adventures do we step into in our household?
Yeah. Oh, that sounds really exciting. Hey, how did you two know each other? How did you meet?
So I found out that Tanisha was in our district because of a conversation that she was going to be leading She was invited by her section to do a talk on what it meant to be a Black woman who was also a credential holder. What was that experience like? You know, they wanted to learn from her and glean from her about that uniqueness. And I will tell you that within our district, there are only 5 ordained African Americans. It's really, and so just finding other African American ministers feels like it's such a challenge. So when I saw her, I was like, oh, who is this? I have to know her. I gotta reach out. So I contacted her.
I love it. I love the stories and how God put people together. You know, we need each other. But man, what a place for you to exercise your influence and really invest in your district. Thank you for your voices, both of you, actually. Thank you so much. And so we have a lot of conversation that we want to talk about, a lot of topics. So Dr. Polk, why don't you lead us with the first question that is really relevant to all female ministers?
Right. So I'd love to talk about what it means to be a staff pastor. You know, we've had some conversation about what it means to be a lead pastor. People talk a lot about women who are missionaries, but I want to talk a little bit about what it means to be on staff. So if we can talk a little bit, Tanisha, about, you know, you mentioned how you filled in once your husband was hired as the lead pastor. So now you're stepping in. And I know that you're a pastor's wife, but you are a staff pastor. You are leading in these areas. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I think I definitely have kind of really cultivate just the importance of having boundaries and just the value of just having upfront communication, you know, and just honest communication, you know. So I think, and just juggling the fact that I have 6 wonderful, amazing children, and then being a pastor's wife and what all that entitles or what people see it as, and then just having this non-traditional position within the church where I'm not just the first lady or the pastor's wife, I'm also a pastor on staff. And not just that, but also leading ministries such as student ministries or any other community activities within the church or outside the church. So it's definitely not something that is familiar to a lot of people that see us at first sight, and they have to kind of adjust themselves, you know, that this is going to be an out of the box conversation with either my husband or myself. So we definitely value team. You know, I cannot tell you how grateful I am to have a husband that really embraces women in ministry, you know, and really brings me to a lot of tables of discussions and really has affirmed me in just my calling and my gifts, you know, not seeing it as an intimidation or a control issue, but there's just a sense of freedom just to be me. And so that is a blessing in and of itself. And also this, how he just encourages me to kind of have boundaries, you know. I remember coming on as pastor's wife and first lady, and there's always these expectations like, okay, so you're going to lead the women's ministry, you're going to play piano. I can play piano, but yes, I digress. You're going to just do the typical activities and the typical ministries that a lot of pastors' wife, which is great, which is so needed. But my heart and my passion and the desires that God has placed within me was a little bit different. Not to say that I didn't embrace those ministries, you know, I've been involved in them, but I always said, hey, if there is somebody here, if there's another woman that has a deep passion for women's ministry and has a great vision to take it to the next level, because I'm kind of spread out in different directions, go for it. I'm going to support you. We're going to team up together, and we're just going to move forward in that aspect. But for me, I will choose to participate, not just overexert myself. So there's definitely this need of balance and knowing when to step into a role of pastor's wife and when to step a role of staff pastor, and then when to step a role of wife. So there's wife, pastor's wife, pastor, and then just a woman.
Yes.
So
now,
just
Tanisha, I'm just going to jump in and say the reason why Saehee is nodding her head so enthusiastically is because she and her husband co-pastor Her husband was the lead pastor, and now she's the lead pastor.
Oh,
So
wow.
she,
Wonderful.
so she and Saehee, you have 3 beautiful children. Is that correct?
Yes, I do.
So you guys are kindred spirits in that way.
Oh, yes.
Wait, like I'm listening to your story. I'm like, yes, I hear you. I've been there.
Yep. You know the stories. We can relate, can we?
Yes, and I feel like this is not a unique story. I feel like there are more of us out there.
Yes.
And so I hope this podcast really encourages them, whoever is listening to our conversation today. There's a lot of juggling and balancing, for sure. But you're right, Tanisha. I think without the men in our lives, especially our husbands, without their championing us and them being there for us throughout the journey, and even recognizing the calling and the gifting, and even paying attention to the timing of that transition. It has to be God ordained, right? We can't make it happen. But you guys are very sensitive of that, all 3 aspects of that. And so I can see the beautiful picture, and God's hands are just upon this. It's so beautiful. There is some amazing joy of fulfilling all that roles, right? Being a pastor's wife, pastor, and first lady, all of those things. In fact, actually, there is a book that was written years ago. The name is Can She Play the Piano? Talking about pastor's wife. So somebody gifted that to me when my husband and I took a pastoral role in rural New Mexico. And it was like a small family church, and somebody gave that to me. Like I knew only a few chords, and I ended up playing the piano. But that book is an expectation of the congregation. Can she play the piano? Can she do this? And boy, I tell you, I think it was a blessing, even though I didn't expect to fulfill all that staff roles, like children's pastors, youth pastors, and everything, janitor, everything in between. I think that really prepared me to become a better pastor. What did you say, Dr. Polk and Tanisha? What would you say? How's your experience different or similar?
Well, I think what I would say is my grandmother, having been a pastor's wife, right? And then having been within the Church of God in Christ, she was a state mother. So that level of leadership as well. I think what it does is it really frees up women who may be married to pastors to say, you know what, I don't necessarily just have to do the women's ministry if that's not what I'm called to. Like, I don't have to fit into that box, which is really important, because you don't want to let people pull you outside of your calling and your grace and your giftedness. For me, because my husband is not, he's not in a pulpit ministry. That's not how God has wired him. That's not his calling. He works for the government. So, that's always an interesting thing. Tanisha talked about, her husband's encouragement, and Saehee, you talked about your husband, Damon's encouragement of you. And so my husband has been very encouraging, but what's really been helpful, in addition to his encouragement, his willingness to say, I'll watch our daughter so that you can go to that meeting and you can do this. And that's not an issue in our house. But it's also been my lead pastor who's been like, okay, Shannon's going to lead this. She's going to handle this. She's going to do this. And then introducing me to folks when we go to some of these meetings, because often people will always ask, and I'm sure you guys got this. Oh, so are you the children's pastor?
Right.
Oh, are you that? Right. Are you the this? And then my pastor's like, no, she's the associate pastor.
Yeah.
And, she handles all these things. And having someone, because for some reason, there's just, people aren't used to seeing women of color in these different positions. They're not used to seeing women, but definitely not women of color. So there's sometimes this little cognitive dissonance of, oh, you're doing that thing. Oh, okay. Yeah. So now there are different questions. And particularly as an associate pastor, like the youth pastors, they all have their teams and they get together, the children's pastor. But when you're doing associate pastor and executive roles, there isn't really a natural connection point. So it's been great to have my pastor be very supportive and help make those introductions and connect me.
Yeah, that's true. I conducted a little survey for my own studies a while back, and they're talking about different male champions, the type of male champions in our lives who really support. Number one is, like, if you're married as a husband or father, or your lead pastors or the staff pastors at church. I mean, those men that God just divinely placed in our lives, they're not far away. Those champions of our lives, they're not far away. You just look around and they're right there. If they only knew, right, the amazing influence that they have to just advance women to the fullest potential. That's beautiful. I love it. What about some of the challenges? Let's talk about that too, because the joy is definitely there. We're learning as we go. and loving people, multitasking, that's all part of the joy too. And just for me personally, it's just fulfilling the call of God. What do you say, Tanisha? What is your greatest joy of being a staff pastor or minister where you're at today?
I think just having this opportunity now, I just want to acknowledge so many women that were before me that were just strong leaders, and they were fearless and just the anointing that God has placed them in. And so they spent a lot of time and commitment just pouring in prayers, just words of encouragement, opportunities. And now I'm in a position to now pour back. So I then am encouraged to seek out just somebody like me, young, who's just now getting into the ministry, maybe like 15, 20 years ago. And now, okay, great. I have this opportunity to really pour into them just like I was poured into. So it means a great deal. It's definitely, and I can say this so many times, it is an honor to be able to do ministry as a woman in today's times. It is an honor and a blessing, and I'm so thankful for it. But I don't take it for granted. I don't take it for granted. I value people's time in which they give to me, and the time in which God gives to me to offer to other people. Mm-hmm. And so just really looking at just the smaller things that sometimes are overlooked is a great meaning for me. And then just the relationships, all the relationships. We serve a God that is so diverse. There's something new that he offers us each and every day. And so just to be able to be in this world where I have different women that I can be in relationships and friendships with in ministry that come from different ethnic backgrounds and different stages of life. And we have this commonality, that we can see each other and envision each other of where God has taken us to be. So I can just say that probably about 10 years ago, I wouldn't have seen myself in this position if God didn't kind of move things away or put things into play to help clarify what he has set a course to do in my life. And so I think just kind of recognizing those kind of contributing factors of just what kind of led me here, and then having dialogues like this. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm hearing the word legacy as you're speaking. You're not just concerned about, I get to live out my calling, where you're concerned about the legacy, the empowering others, the next you. That's really powerful. Now we're going to switch our conversation to talking about actual challenges. There are so many challenges that we can also talk about, but since we're here as women of ethnic minority, let's talk about that, because there are some unique challenges that we face, right? So Dr. Shannon, what is the one question that you would like to guide us through?
Well, I think one of the places we can go is we can talk about, what have been some of our lived experiences, right? In addressing, in seeing how those challenges show up. So oftentimes when I'm showing up with my husband, because my husband is Caucasian, people will be like, oh, so what do you do? And he's like, I work for the government. And then they kind of look like, well, then why are you all here? And I'm like, hi, I'm a pastor. Right? Just this initial, just kind of this assumption of just kind of people not recognizing, and there being a lack of visibility. So that to me is one of the challenges. I think another challenge I would kind of highlight is just just trying to identify women in ministry that you can connect with. That is also a major challenge, because the numbers are just so few when it comes particularly for women of color.
Yeah.
I don't know, Tanisha, what are some of the challenges that kind of surfaced for you?
So I just, as you had mentioned earlier, I just kind of got into a dialogue with our section about this. And so the question that Dr. Shannon had presented that I had to kind of respond to is talking about some setbacks that I've experienced, whether within the AG or just being a woman of color in the AG. And so one of the things that I talk about is this perception that people have of you at first sight. Many times people are surprised that I actually have a part-time job. And so I'm not this like traditional stay-at-home mom. And I feel like stay-at-home moms, that is an anointing from above.
Yes.
That is, I have plenty of friends that have stay home, and I think that they are the superheroes, you know. But just their perception that, one, I'm not this traditional fit in the box woman, you know, where I'm not, you know, sitting home or, you know, just just waiting for an opportunity. There's already initiative in there, and so usually a lot of stares. I love the first response or first impression that people get when I say, "Hey, I have 6 children." You have how many children? And you learn to laugh. Laughter and humor really brings a commonality with people, and it kind of just relieves some tension, right? And so, yeah, I have 6. How in the world do you? You know, we just do it. We just take one day at a time. And then they say, well, what do you do? Are you at home? I said, no, I work and I'm also on staff as pastor. So your husband's okay with that? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And oh, okay. How are your children doing? And I remember even kind of being interviewed for the position for us coming on as pastors. And that was a main concern, was like, how are you going to balance? Can you balance ministry and marriage, you know, and have a balance of like being a parent and a mother? And I'm like, absolutely, but not on my own strength, you know. I mean, I'm going to have to, you know, invite other people who I see as family and who I see are supportive in this and who understands my position and my role. And I'm going to invite them to be a part and help me out. And so I think another thing is you just get this kind of a hesitation to kind of share space. And the other part of that question that I had to respond was, how do I, as an African-American pastor, female pastor, how do I live and how do I do ministry when it's primarily men or white men in the fellowship? And that's the second part of the question. And so once you get past the stares, right, when you walk in the room and they're just like, they just don't know how to respond. They don't know how to react. You know, what do I say? And so a lot of times I don't get a lot of eye contact. And so those are the challenges. Is like the first thing, the eye contact goes to my husband, right? And then my husband, we have these cues and ways of kind of indicating, okay, let me in the conversation. He's like, oh, have you met my wife? Oh yeah, her and I, we're co-pastoring and she's great at this and great at that. And so now that's forcing, you know, the men that I'm talking to give me attention, because my husband has given me the attention too. And sometimes it might be for like 2 seconds and then it goes back to my husband, but that's okay. I caught your eye.
And it's a process.
Yes, it is a process.
Yeah, because there's nothing traditional about being a female minister, right? So we're all pretty much learning as we go, but both and, right? Our male colleagues are learning also to how to operate and interact with female at the table, not leading table, decision-making tables. This is a new world for them too. So I think there's a both, and we have to extend the extra grace toward one another as we learn from each other to work together. What I'm really encouraged by this conversation though, is that things are happening.
Yeah.
Like men are championing, right? Women are rising, not because in a feminist way, but we're rising to obey the call of God. And that's it, you know, and to empower the next generation. And I see your district just opening this platform for you to speak into. And that's something that I hope that all of the rest of the 65 districts will learn from, that we need to start listening to be able to understand and to make tangible changes for the better. So I want to just praise your district for doing such a great job. Your district leaders, such champions. You guys are role models for the rest of the districts and our AG fellowship. So I feel hopeful, even though there are many challenges, right? And that's an ongoing homework. But as long as we're in this together, which we are, and we're going to learn from each other, I think the hope is so great. Dr. Polk, Thank you so much for bringing your amazing superstar, Pastor Tanisha, to the conversation today. It's been so enriching. Why don't you stay with me for a little bit as we just say thank you to Pastor Tanisha. Let's kind of reflect on our conversation between you and I. Pastor Tanisha, thank you so much for joining our conversation. We love you and appreciate you.
Yeah, and I just want to leave this for all those viewers, those wonderful women out there. I just encourage you, continue to be effective in your situation, in your ministry, and don't be infected by what other people have to say or what their thoughts. Know that God has gifted you and placed you at where you're at now. And I'm just so excited that God's just unraveling this beautiful picture of women in ministry today. So it was a great honor, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We love you and appreciate you.
Yes, we do.
Oh, Dr. Polk, she is such an amazing inspiration for me. So much to learn from. And I feel like this is only the beginning, right? We can cover everything within this short time. But what are some of the things that you think that we can press on and learn, continue to have this conversation outside this podcast?
Right. So I think number one, it's identifying your champions, because I believe God does send people ahead of you, right? So there are folks that are wanting to celebrate you. So identifying who those are and strengthening those bonds. I think the other thing that we learn is really pressing into your calling, right? Not running away from it, not minimizing it, but really leaning into who God has designed and made you to be, and trusting that He will open up the right doors at the right time, and that He'll bless the relationships that need to be blessed, and just trusting Him with where your future is headed.
Yeah, that is so important. And I love the fact that we are keep on making new friends like this. Pastor Tanisha, I will love to be friends with her off Facebook, on Facebook. Just continue to learn from each other. I need you and to learn from, I need Dr. Polk, I need Pastor Tanisha in my life so that I can become a better minister. I think we just need each other. Thank you for just having this great conversation. I'm a little sad that your daughter didn't poke in and said hi. I was expecting the divine interruption. It didn't happen today, but we'll tell you.
Maybe another time.
Yeah. We love you and appreciate you. Everybody that are chiming in, thank you so much for what you're doing. We love you. Let's keep on growing and then learning from each other. We love you guys. God bless.
Bye-bye.